a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another Planetary Influences here on the Dr. Kevin Show. Every month, once a month, we do Planetary Influence with Rob Stewart from Inner Center Astrology.com. That's InnerCenterAstrology.com. Rob Stewart comes and we see how the planets are going to influence us over this upcoming period. And again, I always like to remind people, they don't make your decisions. They don't create your destiny. They don't tell you what to do or not to do, but they are a valuable source of information with which you can make better decisions, just like anything else. Your astrology may tell you something. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your candle maker may tell you something different. Your history may weigh in, but it's all information that you should take in, balance out, and make the best decision possible. If you say, wow, this astrology crap, I don't know, like, I never feel like what I read in the paper lines up, well, you could be very correct, because it might not line up. Might not line up at all. You may have a little sun in Virgo, but you may have a ton of other stuff hanging out in, I don't know, Libra or Taurus or Cancer. And they're all going to give you a very different experience than reading the 25 words in the local newspaper or the pop-up on the on whatever your latest app is or whatever. So if you want to have yearly use astrology as a tool, if you want to use it as a source of information that can really make a difference in your life, then you need to get your chart done. And you need to have a basic understanding. Then you tune in here with Rob and I, and we apply what's going on in the stars and the skies, and with your baseline of knowledge and the ability to call into us at 202-570-7057. We can give you the insights that makes that valuable information. It's not valuable if you don't understand it, and it's not valuable if you don't know where to place it. And if you don't have your astrology chart or an understanding of it, or an understanding that you feel really helps you as you tune in to us monthly, then go to InnerCenterAstrology.com. Have Rob do your chart, go over it with you, and then next month, when you tune in, and Rob's gone over your chart, he can answer your question if you don't see where these things are going to affect you or how they apply. Because you can call in again at 202-570-7057. Every month, Rob and I are here to give you a leg up advantage on your decision making for the next 4 weeks or so. So that said, I'm going to welcome on Rob. Rob, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Dr. Kevin.
Absolutely. So we're going to dive into kind of like what the astrology, what those influences are for the next month. But again, remember, you can call in with questions or comments. Rob, let's get to the horse races.
All right. Yeah, and, you know, I do want to preface everything with, the astrology doesn't really speak to what will happen in life, and you mentioned this earlier, but it doesn't really mention what will happen, but it really does a good job of providing some context for some of the questions that might come up, over the next month. And that's sort of the themes that we'll be talking about today. And I always make it clear with the clients I work with that, we can work with the flow of energy in our life, the astrological energy, I guess you'd say, and not be subject to them. It's not something that we're forced by these astrological energies, so to speak, but I see it as something that we can work with to really move with the flow of life. So, with that said, August 16th, so that was just a couple days ago, or yesterday rather, but we had a new moon in Leo on August 16th, and new moons happen once a month, and they indicate, from the astrological perspective, a new beginning. And in the sign of Leo, there's something about reconnecting with joy in your life. Leo is charismatic, it's exuberant, it's creative, cheerful. And so this is a wonderful time to begin new creative projects in your life. And it's a wonderful time to connect with your authentic self. You know, you're allowing your heart to sing and really shining your unique light into the world. This is a wonderful time to start new projects in that way, and really bring your full self into life, and particularly in relationships, because this new moon occurred yesterday. It was conjunct Venus, and conjunct means it's just in the same location in the sky, in this case as Venus. And so this is about bringing your authentic self into relationship, bringing joy into your relationship. And Venus is known for representing the archetypes of relationships, as I've mentioned, but it's also about what you value and your own value system. And so, you know, with a new moon conjunct Venus in Leo, there's something about connecting with what brings you joy in life. Are your values aligned with allowing yourself to shine in life? You know, these types of things. This is a wonderful time to begin new projects or new ventures in those areas of life over this next month, but also over the next 6 months, because new moons initiate a sort of a new 6-month period every new moon that we have. The other thing I want to say with this new moon, and then Dr. Kevin, I want to have you chime in about this. This new moon is squaring Uranus, and Uranus is in Taurus. Uranus is making a trine to Mercury and Mars in Virgo as well. So, you know, basically there's something about, you know, wherever Mars is in the chart, Mars is conjunct to Mercury in this new moon. Mars is about having courage. In Virgo, it's about having the courage to make adjustments. Mercury, speaking, talking about those things. And so with this new moon in Leo, conjunct Venus, squaring Uranus, which is trining Mars and Mercury in Virgo, there's something about, you know, looking at, you know, how much space, how much freedom do you have in your relationships? Is it too much freedom? Are you being too much of a rebel, so to speak? Do you have enough freedom in your relationships to follow your own joy? These are some of the themes that are in play here over the next 6 months with this new moon in Leo. Dr. Kevin, do you have anything to share about these dynamics?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that hit me. Obviously, with the new moon in Leo, and I always think, you know, Leo is that moment where we can choose to shine. Our energies at that time are going to make us attractive in the things that we do in the energy of Leo. And we should be looking at creating, recreating, co-creating, but the Leo energy always speaks to me of creation. And, you know, when you have the childlike energy of Leo, I always think of Leo as childlike energy in some ways, play, creativity, and can have some self-absorbedness to it. It is interesting when you had this very powerful trine that is challenging you to look at things differently, how you think about things, how you move through the world, and how do you adjust to sudden change. And so as these are coming in, I look at these coming together, Rob, and first of all, where is Leo in your chart? That's a very important thing, because whatever house these things are playing out in are going to tell you where this is going to show up in your life most. What area? You'll have areas of your life that won't be touched by this energy at all. And, and that's the beauty of astrology, is when you really understand it and you can work with it, you can kind of zoom in into, like, what those areas are, those parts of your life, those parts even of your body, health, all sorts of different things, that's going to have this back and forth, but it's going to stay unpredictable. And as you are creating, I would say at this time, and wherever this is for you, that you are also going to have to look at the fact of there's going to be unpredictable change. You're going to have to stay flexible in how you think about things, how you're moving through the world, and whatever it is that you're trying to create, there's going to be with this, I would say, look for a real, potentially synergistic, but definitely catalytic set of energies. And again, it depends on where Leo is in your chart and what do you already have there to say, these are the things where this energy is going to focus. Does all that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
You have two different powerhouse sets of planets that are interrelating with each other, pushing each other, like putting each other on steroids. The trine and the conjunction puts everything involved on a form of steroids. And then they're coming at it with this almost energy of, look at wherever this is, I'm going to say is probably a life lesson for you. Would you agree?
Yeah, very, very possibly, for sure. Whenever there's a square to Uranus, I think, you mentioned the word flexibility. Those are going to be really important. Uranus is, whenever there's a contact to Uranus, and this new moon does, so over the 6-month period, there's this sort of Uranian aspect to everything. And Uranus is sort of asking each of us to be sure that we're individuated enough from, the conformity pressures of society, of family, of friends, or wherever else conformity pressures are coming from. And with this, Uranus is squaring Venus. And so, as you mentioned, the flexibility in relationship or unpredictability, maybe in your friendships and things like that. Not that anything bad going to happen, but, in life we need to be flexible as, with friends and all the rest. Over this next 6 months, there could be opportunities for that, and the opportunities to simplify and get more clear on things that are most important to you, Taurus, Uranus and Taurus. Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
Well, flexibility, also Uranus, unpredictability, sudden change, electricity, flash. And so, and I'm just looking because as I'm talking to you, and I want people out there to know how much more benefit it is when you say these things, because I look at, it's the end of my 8th house because my Mercury is in Leo, but my Uranus is in Leo, and it's my 9th house cusp. So that gives me a ton of information to help me be best prepared to manage what I feel like is a pretty powerful set of interactions in the planets.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep on going on in the astrology, but if we have a little time at the end, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, what would you say to me as a client, knowing that this is happening over my natal Uranus?
Absolutely. I think that's the thing with these transits, is that talking about these transits as we are in the show and as we do, it can be helpful in a general sense, but it's really how it relates to your own chart. That's where the rubber hits the road. That's where it gets more realistic and practical. Talking about them in general in this way is helpful, but if we apply it to a chart, that's where we really get to see some of the details and the power of astrology. So now, on August 23rd, we have two major things happening. The first is the Sun entering Virgo. So the Sun has been in Leo over the past 30 days or so. August 23rd, the Sun enters Virgo, the sign of Virgo. And, in review, Leo, over the past 30 months, Leo's about, like you said, expressing yourself, being creative. It's about pouring yourself out into the world. Now, Virgo is about making adjustments to that, making adjustments in your life. What can you fix? What can you improve upon? Virgo is about tasks and chores and the daily grind, making adjustments, being useful. How can I be more useful in my daily routine? Virgo, so over this next 30 days, with the Sun moving through Virgo, light is being shined in areas of our life where we can be more organized, breaking big things down into small things and taking it step by step, identifying problems that need to be fixed, making yourself useful. I've mentioned that one, but contributing your skills, refining your skills, working with a mentor or mentoring others. Virgo is about mentorship, and sometimes mentorship means that we ourselves are being mentored, but also it's about passing on your knowledge. That's a very Virgo energy as well, is passing the torch, in other words, and sharing wisdom and knowledge and practical information. So over the next 30 days, there's real focus, and this energy can be wonderfully used for going over the details in something in your life. Maybe it's going through your notebook, or whatever project or task that needs really detailed, organized structure. This will be a wonderful time for you to work through that. Dr. Kevin, any thoughts, Sun and Virgo?
Not specifically. It's the same old as far as, to me, Virgo is always practical service. And that practical service has to be balanced between practical service for others and practical service for yourself. And you talked about a lot of things we could do for practical service for ourselves, but in the time of Virgo, there's also going to be us looking at being practical service for others. It's a time when suddenly we may catch up on promises of things that we were going to do for somebody, like an elderly parent or, or whatever. But it is a time of, again, practical service. So outside of that, I'm just going to say that, it's going to go over my native Pluto. So what does that mean to me, Rob?
Yeah, so the sun will be solarizing your natal Pluto, in other words, at some point over the next 30 days, because the sun's moving through Virgo. Is that
yep.
Yeah.
The sun's going to go over my 4 degrees of Pluto and my midheaven.
And your midheaven.
So it's going to be at the top of my chart.
Yeah. So, right. So this is, as you know, and obviously, Dr. Kevin, this is a wonderful opportunity to talk about how to apply the sun and these transits. So the sun conjunct your natal Pluto is something that happens once a year, and with your Pluto's location at the midheaven, you said, Pluto always speaks to what I consider past life wounds. Pluto in the birth chart speaks to areas in life where we've had experiences, whether earlier in life or in past lives, as I believe, where there was something really deep and difficult that we had to navigate. And it's something that I always sort of consider, if you do believe in past lives, on your deathbed in a past lifetime, you might have thought, gosh, if that area of life went better, everything would have been a little bit easier. And when I say that area of life, I mean Pluto, natal Pluto. And for you, that's right on the midheaven. That's about your career. It's about who you're seen as in the public. The 10th house is your outer self, the self that you're bringing to the world, but it's not your true self. It's just who you're seen as in the public. And so a 10th house person, as an example, would be, the President of the United States. It's someone that we know their name. It might bring about a reaction in us one way or another, but we don't know who they are truly. When they're home with their family and all that stuff, it's a public persona that we know them by. That's a 10th house. That's our 10th house. And so with the sun conjunct your Pluto, it's shining the light on any past life wounding or early life wounding related to your public standing, your public appearance, your achievements, 10th house, the things that with Pluto there you might have thought you should be recognized for, but of course there's times in life where we're not recognized for the things we'd like. In Virgo, it's about, like you said, that service. And another Virgo quality we haven't talked about is holding oneself to impossible standards. That's a real Pluto and Virgo thing of, I could have done better. I should have been better than that. So the sun is sort of lighting up these things, bringing more empowerment. Pluto is all about empowerment and about being brave in areas where we've felt wounded in the past.
So the funny thing is because my Pluto is actually coming up to my midheaven, so it's in the 9th, but as soon as it passes over the midheaven, it then passes over my north node. So I have North Node and Pluto, each one on each side of the midheaven.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, yeah, that's a very interesting alignment. And what's interesting about Pluto and Virgo, any placements in Virgo have suffered in some way in the past, according to the perspective I take, of internalized some of the criticisms that the world, we live in a world that's always a bit behind the times, and with the Pluto in Virgo in the ninth, you might have some inner, you might have had to endure some criticism due to your beliefs, ninth house, and how that, and your beliefs that you bring to your career and those things. And in Virgo, it's all about self-love. It's all about, your job is to love yourself despite any of these internalized criticisms from the past when, you were saying angels that wasn't accepted at the time, This is just a part of a much bigger summary and description, but these are some of the components that sun could be bringing. Yeah.
Well, and I would think when it hits that North Node, which is what I'm trying to create in this life, it's my pathway forward, that, in this lifetime, I may be righting some of those wrongs by how people see my face in the world. And, and that makes so much sense to me because 33 years ago when I left corporate and had a good corporate job and blah, blah, and all of that stuff, to go back into the psychic alternative fields, the very first thing one of my earliest things was, I'm a professional. I'm in a different profession, but I'm still a professional. And I will be treated like a professional. I will act like a professional. I'm not some circus clown because I have the word psychic in my description. And that goes very much against the grain 33 years ago. Even today, it still goes against the grain that people want to dismiss my profession as illegitimate. And I'm here to make my profession be seen as legitimate, with illegitimate people getting involved, like every profession has illegitimate people getting involved, including the presidency. So the sun's going to ding all of those over the next month, and we're going to take our break, and then we're going to move on to what else is going on with Rob Stewart from InnerCenterAstrology.com.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment.
We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. If you'd like to ask questions or be part of this conversation, share some thoughts, you may do so by calling in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. This is our time of the month where we do planetary influences. So to see what's going on in the skies and what kind of influences will they have, and how can you use that information with which to make better decisions. Here we are with Rob Stewart from InnerCenterAstrology.com as we are talking about what's going on during the time of Virgo. So, Rob, let's go ahead and keep moving and tell us what else is going on.
All right. So also on August 23rd, the same day that the sun enters Virgo, we have a Mercury retrograde beginning in Virgo. As a lot of the listeners are probably familiar, the retrograde period of a planet occurs when that planet appears to be moving backwards in the sky. In fact, the planet is not actually moving backwards, obviously. It's just from the perception of Earth and our orbit relative to Mercury's orbit. It looks like Mercury's moving backwards in the sky, and that's what's considered a Mercury retrograde. They last for 3 weeks, approximately, and this one's in Virgo. So now, a Mercury retrograde, or when any planet is retrograde, it's a time to really organize, reevaluate the energies of that planet, and really rework it. Whatever you're doing before, hey, this is a time to switch it up, try something else. Mercury is about our thinking process. It's how we perceive things. It's where we place our mind's attention. And so with a Mercury retrograde in Virgo, switching up the organization, looking at the way you organize certain things. Where do you need to be more diligent? Where do you need to be more task-oriented? Do you have too many tasks? Which ones do you need to refocus on? What old work do you need to revisit to clear up, to organize? Last show, Dr. Kevin, you had the wonderful example of, you described a great example of that old file cabinet, and in Mercury retrograde, hey, organizing that file cabinet and looking through and, sorting it out. This is a wonderful time, a very detail-oriented time to look at past things and organize those things. It's not a great time. Mercury retrograde is not a great time to start something new. It's a better time to reevaluate things from the past and things you've already worked on and to revisit them. It's not the end of the world if you have to start something new in a Mercury retrograde. It happens all the time. In fact, I'm starting new stuff during the retrograde. But it's just not an optimal time for forward movement when it comes to data analysis or marketing or Mercury rules areas of life, which is, anything related to the mind, communication, perception, those things. But it's just a wonderful time to really organize or work on things from the past that need diligent task focus. Do you have any thoughts on this? This goes through September 16th. Do you have any thoughts on that, Dr. Kevin?
Absolutely. So, first of all, it's probably the term, one of the most recognized terms, oh, Mercury's retrograde. We've all used it. We've all used it in that tone of voice. Because communication will oftentimes break down. And it's the external communication that breaks down. And so people, everything from the internet ate my email I sent you, and it did, to the text that wasn't received, or the voicemail that wasn't heard, or the letter that got misplaced. There are always some kind of communication challenges. So you want to double check anything with communication. If somebody always gets back to you really quickly, and suddenly a day has passed, assume that they didn't get it, that it got blocked somewhere, that some weird thing happens, and we all know that happens, especially in the day of the internet, and you reach out again. Don't go, oh, well, they must be busy, blah, 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 blah. And then 5 days later, you reach out and they go, yeah, I never got it. You've lost 4 days' time. So just stay on top of that stuff. I do want to share that there does tend to be some confumbling in communications when Mercury is retrograde. The other thing is, as you are going back to reorganize the files and look at stuff and things like this, it is a great time in which you may have epiphanies or see things or come to different conclusions, but it's not a good time to make the change yet. So Rob referred to starting new things. I also tell people, look, use this time, and if where your focus seems to be drawn is to go through and organize, let's say, the old files in the filing cabinet, it's not just organizing them. There may be things in there that you forgot, you lost track of, things that fell through the cracks. You may find that you have some kind of different way you want to do things or see things. There's something you can see clearly. And when any planet goes retrograde, I always go, this is the time to deal in this area of your life based on the planet, the sign, and the house it's going through, to go inward. It's not time until it goes forward to check one last time, make sure any changes you want to make still make sense. You've tracked them all out, you thought them out well, and wait until Mercury is going direct before you make the changes. All of that makes sense, Rob?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I often tell people that, during Mercury retrograde, whatever you're working on, it's possible that not all the information is quite in yet. And that's why, with Mercury, when Mercury goes direct, meaning it stops its reverse motion and begins to move forward, that's when the other information can come in. So just know that, Mercury retrograde can be a time where you really, for some people, can feel like a bit, the universe is sort of saying, slow down, take a break. It's a time where you could spin your wheels if you're trying too hard to gain forward momentum. And if you just sit and be still and do the inner work, I guess you'd say, whatever that is in life, and be prepared for more information to come in after September 16th. So if you are working on a big project and you expect to be completely done by, early September, I would say expect some delays. It's a time where there's sort of unavoidably and invariably some delays that come up, and that meeting's pushed off another 2 weeks. This is sort of the nature of Mercury retrograde. So keep that in mind.
Okay, what else do we have going on?
All right, so on August 27th, Mars enters Libra. Mars in astrology represents our willpower. It represents where we're being asked to have courage in life. And so, which is one of my favorite descriptors of Mars. Wherever Mars is, we're being asked to have courage there. And in Libra is about relationships. And it's about finding peace and harmony and balance in relationships. But with any sign or astrological energy, there's healthy sides and less healthy sides. And if there was a Librosis, Librosis would be polite dishonesty. Being nice, but this Librosis would be wanting to keep things okay, but really things aren't okay. And so with Mars in Libra, and to avoid Librosis, so to speak, it's about having the courage to have those conversations, and to hear, to receive, to be a diplomat, and look at both sides of the issue. And so it's not a selfish time. It's a time to really take in both sides of the issue, whatever that is, whether that's a relationship or at work or whatever it is, and really find the courage to find those balances in your life. Do you have anything to add?
Well, just highlight more than add. I think that with Mars in Libra, you can find both the courage and the diplomacy to be compassionate, see both sides, and to act in a way that is different if you're having a conversation or a subject that you have struggled with in the past. We all have certain relationships in our life that we struggle with walking the fine line of managing the dysfunctional aspect of that relationship, whether it's a child, a parent, a spouse, a boss, a friend, that there are dysfunctional aspects in every relationship. They all have some. And I think that this is the time that you're invited to not rush in and not work yourself up so it comes out like Linda Blair in The Exorcist when it comes out, but to really get quiet and try to see it from all sides, try to find a place of peace. Go in there with an idea that you will be open to what they say and be open that they may say something that gives you a piece of information that actually shifts the way you think or feel about something. And I see this in couples work all the time. When I'm working with a couple, that suddenly something comes to light and the other person in the couple's energy dissipates. They go, oh, I didn't know that, or I didn't realize that, or you never shared that. Because now a piece has been dropped in. And so I just encourage people to take advantage of this combination to do that. So back to you.
Yeah, well said. Okay, so August 28th, we have Uranus going retrograde in Taurus. And this Uranus remains retrograde for a while. It's through January 27th. As I mentioned earlier, retrograde planets, it's all about reworking that energy. And it's an opportunity to sort of really correct the sails, so to speak, of the ship with regards to that planet. And Uranus is about individuation. It's about, I mentioned this earlier, it's about like shedding the pressures of conformity from wherever it's coming from friends, from peers, from family, from culture, from society, a healthy Uranus is someone that is individuated. It's someone that has freedom in their life, but not a endless, hopeless wanderer that has no anchor in life. It's someone that has a healthy amount of freedom, healthy amount of individuation, and is not no longer subject to conformity for reasons that aren't aligned with them. And so, with Uranus going retrograde, the idea of freedom. Do you have enough freedom in your life? Uranus and Taurus, financial freedom to enjoy the pleasures of life, Taurus, the simplicity of life, Taurus, the freedom to follow your value system, which is Taurus as well. And what changes do you need to make, Uranus retrograde, with going your own speed in life? Are you grounding enough? Are you steady enough? These are all Taurus energies. And Taurus is also about simplifying life to the bare essentials. And so, do you have the freedom to do that in your life? And what do you need to adjust to do so? Maybe you're overly free. You're the rebel's rebel. And in that case, that's about bringing it again more back into equilibrium. Do you have any thoughts about this, Dr. Kevin?
The one thing I'd like to add is this is a time to embrace that you are likely to surprise yourself. That part of that retrograde in Taurus is you may find that you're ready to release or face the fact that something that came from your childhood, something that came because of your culture or how you were raised or whatever, that you have taken a hard, fast, inflexible view of yourself or of the world. Like, what do you need to feel safe? Or what do you need to feel valued? Or even your ideas of what brings you, comfort and joy. Those are all things that I think of in Uranus and retrograde, that you may be faced with a situation during this time period where, like, you were sure you were going to hate something and you loved it, and it completely threw you for a loop because it redefined some part of yourself that died a long time ago, but you never buried the body. You just left it stuffed in a chair. Like, I always hate blah. And for some reason, you're forced to do blah, and you go, my God, I loved it. And it changes a sense of foundational self. Does that all make sense, Rob?
Yeah, no, I like that. I think, the foundation, Taurus, that, how is each of our foundations? I think that's a really big key topic here, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So plan on surprising yourself and don't fight against it. Go with the flow. Sometimes you need some heavy rains to refill what was once a dry riverbed back to a flowing river. So something may come back into your life that feeds you, that you let go of a long time ago, and help you get back to a truer you, just as a possibility.
Absolutely. No, I like that. Yeah. So August 30th, we have a full moon in Pisces, and this full moon is conjunct Saturn by about 4 degrees. So Saturn and the moon are conjunct on this full moon in Pisces. Full moons are about completion. They're about a crossroads, so to speak, of letting go of what needs to be let go of, particularly in Pisces. And so when I think of Saturn, Moon, and Pisces, Pisces itself is about transcending, surrendering, going beyond self in a connecting with higher truth, surrendering to something more powerful than oneself. And with Saturn in there, it makes me think of the Serenity Prayer. How does that go? It's
grant me the serenity to accept the things that I can. Now you've made me I know this because I give it out all the time.
Right.
To accept the things I can. Yeah, go ahead.
The courage to make the changes that I need to, or something like that, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm sure I slaughtered the second half of that.
Yep.
But with this full moon in Pisces, I think it's really asking all of us, do you have the wisdom to know the difference between those two things? Do you have the wisdom? This is a time to practice the wisdom. What can you control and what can you not? And surrender with those things you cannot control, because of course, you don't have to surrender, but you're going to exhaust yourself. There's things in life that are completely and absolutely out of our control. In fact, many, if not most things, are absolutely, totally out of our control. With this full moon in Pisces conjunct Saturn, it's about the challenge of transcending this story, this sort of daily egoic story that we all get caught into. I'm this person, and this is my story, and this is what I do, and this blah, blah, blah. The stories can be rosy, they can be thorny, whatever the personal story is. But Pisces is about, hey, forget that story. That's not your true self. There's something far greater. We're all a drop in the ocean of consciousness. We're all one consciousness. And so a full moon in Pisces is about surrendering to that larger truth. Do you have any thoughts about this? Again, I'm kind of speaking in from a wider lens here, but I wanted to give you, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I think that this conjunction of the full moon, and remember, if you go back to the new moon in Pisces, which would have been back in March, and you look at what were the things that you put into play in that full moon, and they're likely to be some kind of growth or expansion or some kind of something that you're trying to transcend something, that you're trying to step out of some kind of limitation. And now, with this conjunction, you're able to realize that if you can let go of the story, if you can let go of I always call them the lies that you didn't know were lies, that you were told about the world or yourself or how the world functions, no matter what the lies were, they were lies. But you didn't know they were lies. And with a Saturn conjunct a Pisces full moon, you can restructure your foundation and transcend it, would be what I would say. Agreed?
Absolutely agreed. And looking back to the corresponding new moon 6 months ago, that was on February 20th. And so, if everyone were to think back to February 20th, thereabouts, there might have been the beginning of something new. And this full moon coming up on August 30th is just like you said. It's the surrendering completion of this greater process. So, yeah, great. And the final thing I wanted to mention was that on September 3rd, Venus goes direct in Leo. So once Venus goes direct, Venus has been retrograde over the past month or so. Once Venus goes direct, it's time to sort through the issues that came up over the past month regards to bringing more joy and creativity into your relationships, into what you value. This is kind of sort through that, make the adjustments, and really learn from this past month, that to you in terms of relationships and life and continue. Is there anything you want to add with that?
When Venus goes direct, especially in Leo, she's ready to rock, rumble, and step out into the world. She's a hot mama looking for a good time. And that's our time on this month's Planetary Influence with Rob Stewart from InnerCenterAstrology.com. Rob, thanks, and I'll see you in a month.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Kevin. Have a great month.
You